Can your gaming PC run Senua Saga Hellblade 2? That's what we're gonna find out in today's video. Roll the intro. Oh wait, I ain't got no intro. Let's go. So, if I'm not mistaken, Ninja Theory announced that they were going to release the game on the 21st of May of 2024, as you can see here. And as of 2 days from now, so I think on the 1st or the 2nd of this month of May, they've opened the pre-orders, so you can pre-order the game right now on Steam for £50, 50 US dollars, or even 50 euros. It's the same number for all these three currencies. And of course, I already pre-ordered mine. As the name says, it's Hellblade 2. So they had the first Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, which was released in 2017, which I've already also played. It costs £25, but it's constantly on discount. I've seen it up to 90% off. If you can get it that cheap, then I highly recommend you to play this game before you play the second. But enough waffling around, I'm talking too much. You're here for the specs. The specs for the game, or the system requirements, have finally released, and here you are. Ninja Theory have published this on Instagram and X. They published this at 4 p.m. Here in the UK, so do your conversions however you want and wherever you are. This is what we're going to go through today, the system specs. It's not perfect, but it's way better than a lot of them that I've seen out there. They have the graphics presets, CPU, GPU, how much VRAM I guess you need for that, but whatever. System RAM, storage. They say SSDs on all of them. Is it a recommendation, or is it like you have to have an SSD? I guess we're gonna find out. And obviously the Windows. So they're not saying how many frames per second you're gonna have if you have exactly this minimum, medium, recommended, or very high preset. But at least we have an idea that if you have everything on low, 1080p, you will need an Intel i5 8400 or a Ryzen 5 2600. And I've opened here, sorry if I flashed you. Oof. The Intel i5 8400 is from 2017. It's a 65 watt unit. It's a 6 cores, 6 threads, so no hyper threading yet, on 14 nanometer. And it's a 4 gigahertz maximum turbo clock with 9 megabytes of cache. If we jump to an AMD, it's the 2600, yeah, so Ryzen 5 2600. It's 6 cores, 12 threads, so it does have hyper threading. It goes up to 3.9. It's a 65 watt unit as well, with 16 megs of cache. Now let's go check the GPUs, right? So you have the GTX 1070, the RX 5700, or an Intel Arc A580. So let's have a look at the 1070 here on TechPowerUp. I'm using TechPowerUp as just as a reference. It's not perfect, but it's better than well, a lot of other websites that I might not trust or know. You can see all the things here, how much it costed and whatnot. I'm gonna leave a link to all of these things down below. But yeah, let's have a quick look. At the 1070 is, I don't know if you can find your GPU somewhere here. I'm gonna scroll a little bit up. There's a very trusty and very well known 1060, 580, you know, the 980. You have a lot of GPUs here, and you can have an idea of the performance you're gonna have at 1080p. So 1920 by 1080p, by 1080, sorry. Everything on low. They don't say what the frame rate, so I don't know for sure if you're gonna have 30 FPS or 60 FPS, but I assume 30 because it's the minimum of the minimum, and it's still 1080p. It's a very relevant, still very relevant GPU, the 1070, but nonetheless, like the game is heavy, and it's running on Unreal Engine 5. The previous game was on Unreal Engine 4. But yeah, enough. So you can see here the 3050, 1660 Super, the 1660 Ti, very well known GPUs. They're all around the same ballpark. Now the next GPU is the RX 5700, which is 23% better on average than the 1070 apparently, again according to TechPowerUp. Maybe this is the only GPU they had, or maybe the 1070 was the only GPU they had closer to. Maybe they didn't have a 1080. I assume you'd have the same, around the same performance as the 1080 with the 5700, but maybe they didn't have this one, or it's better optimized for AMD, for Radeon. But funnily enough, they have the ARC A580 as well, which is literally the same performance as the RX 5700. So I don't know what's going on with the NVIDIA part, GPU part, but anyway, I don't know if you can still see your GPU somewhere here. Maybe the 6600, and the 1060 Super. But yeah, let's move on to the next one. Before I go to the next one, they recommend you 16 gigs of RAM on all of them. It doesn't matter if it's a minimum or the very high. They recommend 16 gigs of RAM. Now going back to 1080p again, but on medium preset. So 1080p medium preset, there's they recommend you an i5 9600 or the Ryzen 5 3600X. So I've opened here the Intel part. So the 9600, the i5 on 9600 is a 6-core 6-thread again, but this time is not a 4.0, it's a 4.6 gigahertz turbo frequency. Jeez, that was hard to say. 65 watt part. It has 9 megabytes of cache as well, and this CPU came on 2019. It was still stuck on the 14 nanometer, but yeah, they were on the 14 nanometer for a long time. I digress. Now the 3600X is a 6-core 12-thread, also hyper-threading, same as the previous one, with 32 megabytes of cache, a little bit higher, it's twice as much. So yeah, it was on 7 nanometers, and it's a 95 watt CPU, and it clocks up to 4.4 gigahertz. The CPU is also from 2019, so exactly around the same era, but with hyper-threading. A little bit slower clocks. Now going back, and what GPU do you need for 1080p medium? You need a 2070, the RX 5700 XT, or again Intel Arc A580, so the same GPU for Intel. Let's see what TechPowerUp says about this. So the 2070 is right here. It's very close to the 5700 XT. So now it's basically neck and neck, right? If I keep swapping like that, you can see that they're in the same ballpark. They're exactly the same percentage. And the 580 is here, 92% of the performance of the 2070. If we do the other way around, in case you're curious, it's 9% better if you have the 2070 or the 5700 XT in average. But again, they're saying that you need one of these GPUs with at least 8 gigabytes of VRAM to have 1080p medium on a playable state. But what is that? Is it 30 frames? Is it 40? Is it 60 already? Or could you do 1080p low but with the same specs from the medium and and reach at least 60 frames? That's the only thing that I'm beating a dead horse, I know, but that's the only thing I'm still not sure. Anyways, now for the most interesting part for me, the 1440p, also known as 2K by some people, and 4K. Well, on high settings, yeah, 1440p, you need a 1070. You need you need a 10700K or a Ryzen 5 5600X. Let's look at the CPUs. Here you go. The 10700K was still on 14 nanometers, so 14 plus or something like that. It was like 4 pluses at that point, I think. It was released on 2020, so in the pandemic area, pandemic time. It's at least an 8-core, 16-thread, 5.1 max turbo clock. It's basically a 5.0 with 16 megs of cache. It's a 125 watt CPU, and the Ryzen 5 5600X is a 6-core, 12-thread, up to, and it goes up to 4.6 gigahertz with 32 megs of cache, and it's a 65 watt unit. It also came in 2020, so pandemic time. Going back now to the GPUs, what GPU do you need for 1440p high? Again, I don't know what frame rate, but at least what they say it in high settings 1440p, a 3080. So you need an RTX 3080, not 4080, 3080, or an RX 6800 XT, or an ARC A770. The A770 is here. It's around the same performance of the 1080 Ti. Very well known card. I still have it. I'm not using it right now, but I still have it. Very similar performance to, as you can see, other GPUs here. The 6600 XT, 1080 Ti, like I said, the 2070 Super, the 6650 XT. If you have one of the new ones, the 7600 XT, 7600, you might still be able to play at 2K, so 1440p high settings. That's interesting to know. What are the GPUs? So the 3080. Let's have a quick look at the 3080. Oof, 3080. There's a big gap there. Yep, there's a big jump. So Intel, really well optimized. But yeah, if we go from the Intel, from the ARC GPU A770, and we try to find the 3080, there you go. The 3080 is 76% better. Oof. Okay. Anyway, now the 6800 XT. 6800 XT is basically the same performance of the 3080. So if you have around any of these GPUs, you can see here, I'm leaving them open. So 3070, 3070 Ti, 6800, 7800 XT, and so on. You have around the same performance. Going back now, and finally, to finish this off, at very high, so, well, that's what they call it, very high. The high settings, 4K, balls to the wall, let's go. You want to have everything? What do you need to play this game completely maxed out on the highest resolution so far? They say at least 12 gigabytes of VRAM. Okay, interesting. So you need, sorry, I jumped ahead. You need the 12600K from Intel or the 5700X from AMD. Let's have a quick look at the CPUs again. And this is a 12600K. That was hard to say. Total cores 10. So what is it? 6 performance cores, 4 efficiency cores. So that's a total of 16 threads. 4.9 turbo on 4.9 turbo frequency clock. 20 megabytes of cache, and it's 150 watt CPU from 2021, end of 2021, so beginning almost 2022. Let's see what the AMD part is. The 5700X is an 8-core, 16-thread, so yeah, multi-threading as it says there, up to 4.6 turbo clock, 32 megabytes of cache, and it's a 65 watt unit. So by consuming less, it will also produce less heat to your room. But anyways, this was released in 2022. And what GPUs? Of course, the 4080. At least it's not the 4090, but 4080, and what's comparable to the 4080? The 7900 XTX. Interestingly enough, they don't have anything from Intel. So maybe you can't use an ARC card to play 4K? I don't know. If I had one, I would test it, but I don't have one, so sorry. You're gonna have to look at other videos from other people. I'm pretty sure they will do a better job than me anyway. Here you go, 4080. So the previous GPU was the 3080 for 2K, so 1440p. It's 67% of the performance of. Okay, let's look at her. 3080 up to the 4080. It's basically 50% performance uplift. And the other GPU is the 7900 XTX, which is basically the same performance of the 4080 or the 4080 Super now, because the 4080 is being discontinued, sort of. I guess they stopped selling it. The 7900 XTX and the RTX 4080, they are basically the same performance in terms of rasterization, but if you enable ray tracing, so as soon as you turn ray tracing on, the path tracing or whatever else, then the Radeon graphics card, so the 7900 XTX, is definitely gonna lose by a significant amount. They are basically the RT performance of the 7900 XT, the 7000 series, is basically the same as the 6000 series, but a little bit improved. It's not a new technology that they improved, or a new CPU, if you will, or new GPU inside. It's basically the same, but just a little bit improved. So these were the PC specs for Senua, Saga, Hellblade 2. But before I go, just quickly read what they say here on their image. They say higher frame rates or resolutions can be achieved with the use of DLSS 3, FSR 3, or XeSS 1.3. So I guess, according to what it says here, at least according to my understanding, sorry, I think that you need these specific hardware, so the specific CPU, the specific GPU, for that graphic preset and that resolution, according to what they're saying here. So yeah, you need the 2070, for example, 2070 and the i5 9600 for a medium 1080p experience, but they don't say anything about DLSS or FSR being used on any of them in quality or performance or whatever else. So I think this all was used without any upscaling at all. And if that's the case, then that's really good, because you can enable FSR on basically all of them. But yeah, you could do DLSS if you have a DLSS capable card. So any RTX GPU will do the job. But if you have the 1070, even the 1080 Ti, which is a really good card still, you can't enable DLSS because the GTXs didn't have them, only RTX. Yeah, so you can still enable the FSR 3, and I'm pretty sure you'll still have like a really good experience, like a 1080p high, maybe 1080p medium. I would say 1080p high, but still, I wouldn't recommend anyone doing any DLSS or FSR, XeSS, any of them in 1080p, at least 2K, so 1440p or even higher. If you're gonna do it on 1080p, it's gonna be very blurry, because you're essentially going even lower than 1080p, so 480 I think, and 720p. It's really not the best choice, but if that's what you have and that's what you can do, then we'll gotta make do what we can do. Anyway, that's gonna do it for today's video. I didn't want to do this a very long video. I just wanted to talk about Hellblade. Again, I'll use any excuse to talk about Hellblade or GTA 6. Well, whenever there's anything relevant or coming from them directly. If there's any leaks or rumors, I'm not into it. It's not my thing. I will look into it a little bit, but I will not do any videos about it, because it's just rumors. In the end of the day, I might be wrong, and I'm just talking to the camera, well, to you, for nothing, because things might not be true, right? And if it doesn't end up being true, I might be held liable as well. So I'm only going to report on stuff that I know for sure, and well, I know this for sure. It was published by them, Ninja Theory, so the creators of the game. Anyway, I'll leave links of all of these things that we've seen. Well, I'll leave the link at least for the game on Steam if you want to pre-order the game on Steam. You can also, I think, buy it on Microsoft store, so like the Xbox store thing or whatever. I'm gonna leave a link for Twitter as well, if you want to see this image, because on Steam, if you have a quick look again, they only show you the minimum and the recommended. They don't show you the full thing like they're showing here. They're showing 4 different presets here. But anyways, I'm gonna leave all these things down below. Leave a like on that. Click 3 times on the number like. Leave a comment. Say what do you have. What's your GPU? What's your CPU? I'm curious. Can you play this game? Are you gonna be able to? What frame rates do you think we're gonna have? Because clearly it doesn't state here. And yeah, I'll See you guys in the next one.